All right. Now let's dive into our agenda for today's session. So we will start with a very short introduction, so you kind of know the faces and voices behind Baobab Tech and Wash AI. Then we'll deep into a short first session on what is really AI, what it is and what it isn't. We'll look into different types of models and systems that we use. A second part will be on the practical use of AI in Wash. We want to ask you all, what about you? What do you use? What do you use it for? And we'll look into different ways of using AI on a daily basis at work. The third part will be on comparing available AI models that exist today to help you choose when you're in doubt of which system to run your inquiries through, to help you choose between them. And we'll finish with a live Q&A. This is why we really need you to use the Q&A section of Google Meet. We'll have a couple of polls also because we'd like to explore what we could go through in a second, more advanced session of AI in Wash that we'd like to organize later this year. So as you probably know, since this is an intro to AI in Wash, this will be quite a generic presentation, and we hope to get into a bit more practical themes in a second session. All right, so before starting, I'd like to give the floor to my colleagues Chaiwe and Olivier. They'll introduce themselves so you kind of know who we are, and then we'll start with the presentation. Chaiwe, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Thanks, Celine. It's a pleasure to be here. Greetings from Lusaka, Zambia. It's midday here, and I pass my greetings to everybody from around the world. My name is Chaiwe Mshauko Sanerse, and I'm a consultant with Baobab Tech based here in Lusaka, Zambia. I'm a founder of an organization called CADEV, Catalyst Development. And for Baobab Tech, I'm more focused on the localization conversation around Wash AI. Specifically looking at the country focus at each individual country level across the continent. It's a pleasure to be here today and looking forward to this session. Thank you.
Thanks, Chaiwe. Olivier?
Hi, I'm Olivier. I'm the founder of Baobab Tech. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here. We kind of launched this as a follow-up to one of the sessions that we had with the Agenda for Change for their mentorship program, where there was a lot of interest in seeing about Wash AI, AI and Wash. And so, yeah, we launched this. We have a lot of people on the call, much more than expected. And this is the first time we use Google Meet, so apologies for us to trying out new technology, but I mean, that's life. So. Yeah, very excited. I founded Baobab Tech mainly for the purpose of leveraging AI for social good. That's really the main reason that I founded it, with a focus on Wash, which is a sector that I'm familiar with from my own background. So yeah, very excited to hear from you mostly and hear some of your challenges and opportunities that we're experiencing within the sector in using the latest of AI.
Right, I echo Olivier's words. There's been over 170 signups for this session. I think there's over 60 of you in the session, so thank you so much for being here. And I'm Selene. I'm the partnership lead of Baobab Tech. So I take care of connecting AGOs and structures that want to participate in Wash AI through sharing their data. So if your structure could be interesting in participating, you're most welcome to contact us. All our contact information are on the website of Baobab Tech in the team page. All right, so before we dive into it, we wanted to share with you a little Menti poll. It's a very quick one with 3 scale questions. We wanted to have your experience on, so you can pull out your phones and scan this QR code or join through the website with the vote code. And you'll be able to rate 3 things: your own awareness of different AI tools. Please don't be shy. We don't expect anyone to have a very strong awareness of AI tools, considering this is an intro session. So feel free to be honest and yes. Then a second question is on knowledge, skill, and competence around the use of AI. And then the last one is on your perception and attitude around AI, especially linked to Wash. So this Menti poll is going to stay open, so I'll continue with the presentation, but feel free to take your time to answer it. And if you have access issues, you can write a little message in the chat. We already have 15, 16, 18 participation of the Menti, amazing. All right, quite an average rates for now. All right, Olivier, is that okay for you if we go on with the next slide?
Yep. Yeah.
Amazing.
Do you want me to? I can share the screens if you want.
Oh, amazing. Yes, thanks. And I'll give the floor to Chaowei, I believe, who will be presenting the different types of AI that exists in our day-to-day life already.
Thank you, Solang. So I think the biggest question here is, what is AI really? How do we define it? And in summary, AI is really artificial intelligence. It's a tool that, we have been exposed to long before the current AI that we look at now. And how it's defined basically is AI systems that provide many aspects on our daily lives. Most of us interact with it on a daily basis. In most cases, we have seen that AI would allow us to progress in one way or the other in terms of the way that we use IT systems and online systems. And for the most part, some of the tools that we are faced with on a daily basis that we do not realize are AI tools are things like facial and voice recognition, and how those allow us access to certain key features on the online platforms. In other cases, it's recommendations and algorithms per se that allow us to have access to something that we're looking for online. I mean, it's no surprise that when you look at an online tool today, the next day you are given all this content and all these recommendations on what is possible for you to buy. So those are algorithms that AI has tapped into and is feeding to you, sometimes without you realizing it. And then it also offers machine translation. So the translation tools that we see oftentimes, like in this particular conversation, we're having, when you activate this translation tool, that's AI at work. And then finally, one other example is maps and travel plans. I think way back when, before AI, we were using physical maps, but here we are, we're able to actually use online systems and tools that allow us to have access to key locations globally. We can move to the next slide. Okay. I think my screen is not moving as yet, but that's also another challenge behind AI tools, is sometimes technology will come in the way, but nonetheless, to move on. So what derivatives or diversity of AI systems do we have, especially for the watch sector, for example? I think the critical ones are things around weather prediction. In weather prediction, we're able to input data with the objective of rain season or the annual rain season set out for later in the year. So it's more a predictive tool, and it can be used as a predictive tool. It also is quite critical for recommendations as well. So what I mean by that basically is, you input information, what a user is looking for, and that several recommendations are provided, which maximize purchases, engagements, and then give you the best possible outcome of those recommendations, or the best possible prices per se, if we're looking at for potentially services, for example. And then generation of large language models. Sorry. So that again is like it's important for us to understand that AI tools maximizing the likelihood of us to be able to understand each other across different contexts. So in terms of technology adaptation and uptake, there are a few questions that we have that we hope you can think through because we intended for this to be more of an interactive approach. I think the key questions that we would like to ask you, and feel free to key in the chat, but later on at the end of each section, it would be nice for us to hear from you. Where is this technology at? You know, what do you see as being the progress of AI in today's world, based on where we're coming from and where we're going, and what is possible with the two? And we hope that more people using it, you know. Is there a reason why it has usage of AI?
I think we got some connection issues.
And then finally, why aren't more organizations integrating it? Why are we seeing limitations in terms of access in some cases? And can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, there's just some cutoffs.
Let me know. So for the last point, why aren't more organizations integrating it? Are there any limitations in the sense of how AI tools are, you know, explored or are accessed within the organizational settings? Moving on to the next slide. We asked the question, what about AI systems in WASH specifically? And I think it's worth giving two critical examples on how AI systems are being used in the WASH sector. For start, they are quite critical in providing of running water. I think that's one system that has been benefiting from AI tools. We're seeing mapping really taking precedence in the WASH sector. An example of M-Water is one critical example of how AI systems have worked in the sector. And then new casting mapping, so we've seen, especially in an example of Zambia, where we've had floods in the past, or Kenya recently as well. Last year had quite some floods in the rain season. And so they were able to model and map out where these flood zones are, or where they would potentially be, to be able to create decisive action on those predictions. Forecasting things like disease occurrence or around cholera, for example, or drought occurrences, or lack of access to water in some regards, in some cases. And then we've seen the estimating likelihood of the severity of a situation. So we're able to trace and track to what extent be heavily hit by a potential natural disaster like floods or droughts, or the lack of water supply, for example. And then further to that, we've looked at Google Flood Hub. I think that's the key tool that is able to predict flood occurrence, but it has been able to provide that kind of prediction, future prediction. So moving on, What about AI? Maybe further diving into the wash sector. As mentioned earlier, we're looking at predicting real-time insights, so monitoring, mapping, and forecasting of floods or flood mapping. One other example is automating actions at scale. So we're looking at aspects to do with optimizing logistics and planning, streamlining waste collection and refugee camps. So we're able to see that automating actions at scale, especially with large populations such as refugee camps, you're able to stream where waste will come from and at what volumes we're able to collect. And then application of AI in climate and communication tasks. So we've also been able to see AI work on supporting communications in the sector, things like image or audio creation through AI, text summarization, large texts will come in and we're able to augment those texts to more tightly packed summaries that are easily able to be digested by others in the sector. AI is supporting us largely with proofreading of text, especially large amount of text that may come in from several sources. In the same vein, it's able to infer retrieval. So we know that when we get in large amounts of text or communication packages, AI systems in the past were not as clever enough to retrieve that information as quickly as possible, but those retrieval approaches are now getting better. And then at some point we'll be able to collect some of your thoughts and inputs, and you can also voice in your own experiences there. So just to finalize on that one, like I was saying, so the communication side, disclosure analysis and fact checking, I think is also a very critical one that we initially were not able but tools that are check at the quickest possible time what sort of data is coming in and how authentic it is. I talked about predicting the future, so I'm just going to skip that and go to targeting. I think one of the critical things that we're seeing with AI is targeted data. So more efficient use of scarce resources. We know that, when we are responding to, say, a flood or victims of a flood, you are able to target exactly where those interventions are intended to go. Because the resources are scarce, for example, so you're looking at the most critical beneficiaries or the most critical responses that are needed for certain key populations. And so that targeted data is critical there. And then more water, more life, with respect to borehole drilling, for example, you're also targeting key populations where water may be a little more challenging to access. So that predictive modeling or targeted modeling also encompasses what AI is able to do in the water sector. And then finally, personalization and localization. That is interactive chatbots. I think these days you don't always often have to have somebody at the back of a desk to respond to queries or thoughts or questions. Even in the wash sector, we're able to get key, quick responses from chatbots that are also tapping into key factual information in the background to offer you solutions. That's the same as recommendations, machine translation, voice recognition and response. I think that's where the personalization and localization really comes from, because that's where you can do it at a personal level. It doesn't always necessarily have to be at an institutional level. And then finally, Wash AI, I think, is very, very personalized and localized. And that's where we zone it down from these AI systems that are more generalized and robust. I think some examples like DeepSeek or ChatGPT will look at every source of information out there and offer you a solution. But when we talk about something like Wash AI, that's something that is very, very localized, that is very tangible and very applicable to the to the wash sector specifically. And so what that tool does is it looks at the sector's database, the sector's information, sector-fed facts and resources, and then packages in such a way that it is more responding to those needs in the sector. Yeah, so I think in summary, this is what we have. In terms of practical use of AI at work, I'm going to hand over to Olivier, and he will be able to run you through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chewe. I'm going to share a link in the chat, so on these examples, we had a lot of questions that came in through the registration about sort of applications of AI in WASH, and there was a lot. Everyone wanted to cover every aspect of it. So I put together, I've got a working Google Sheet, which looks across various research and applications across the different areas of I would say water sanitation, hydrology in general, and what we're seeing. So feel free to have a look at that sheet. It's very it's somewhat disorganized, but you can have a look and see of examples and where the technology is at. And as Chewe was presenting, like none of this that we've talked about so far is in the generative AI space. It's very much in the predictive analytics, which has been around for over a decade. That's not new technology. I think AI became popular because of the generative AI. So, it kind of gave an opportunity for I would call it the old school or the traditional AI to get some popularity back. That said, we are seeing advances in the ability to develop predictive models now because of generative AI. So we're able to work with data better because of the tools that are now available. And so while some of the techniques are still very traditional, we've got tooling that makes us much easier to build these predictive models as well. So in that list there, you can have a look at over 100 of different examples. It's just fairly, I need to go through it. It needs to be cleaned, but at least you can have a look, and there might be areas that might interest you. And I'd love to hear if there are any organizations who are working with predictive models or anything in that space, be it water demand forecasting, and I think water quality monitoring are very big, very popular ones. I haven't seen much in production. I haven't seen much actually used like for real versus just pilots. So if you are working with these models in real situations and not just sort of like pilot situations, then please do share and let us know. Just a reminder, there is the way to ask Q&A versus the chat in the bottom right. There's meeting tools. There's those 9 dots. Go in there, and there's a Q&A button that you can jump to ask some questions. And there are already some great questions. We'll make sure we create time to tackle them. So practical use of AI at work. I think what I wanted to cover in this intro session, a reminder, this is an intro to AI session. We're not going to dig in. We will have another session for more advanced use. We wanted to just have a look at what I'm calling the new AI. And for that is really the generative AI space, because it has truly, revolutionized the way we do work. And so I'm going to go through some really basic parts of how we can use it. I won't go into detail. I know a lot of you are already using it, and I'd love to hear that. So we do have a Menti that's up with 2 parts of questions. One is, how are you currently using AI? That can include the predictive models, but as well the generative models. So if you are using any kind of large language models or chatbots, or even better, if you've got applications that have been built around it, please share in the Menti there. You can either scan or go to menti.com and put in that code, and I will share the screen to see, and we can have a look. There's already a lot of responses there. Let me just try and share this. Tab instead. So this is how you're currently using it. I'm just going to slowly scroll through because it is interesting. Data analysis, advanced use, and a lot of people are not, some people are not using it. Perplexity, that is a great tool, and I'll present it briefly. ChatGPT and Perplexity, summarization, translation, reports, revising, contextual data methodologies. Yes, Notebook LM was very popular. It's a Google tool. And brainstorming, absolutely one of the best use cases. I use it a lot for brainstorming. Summarization, excellent. So I'll leave this for you to keep answering in there. I will go back to showing this. Sorry, this is the first time we do a large scale presentation with Google Meet, and it seems to be going okay. The next question is, how would you like to use AI for work? And that's an important one. And I want you to think about maybe, and we'll come back to that, but I do want you to think about what excites you about the potential use of AI, and think of the art of the possible. You may have heard of a technology, maybe it's not ready yet, you don't know, but I want to see how you would like to use AI. And this is an exciting part because this is looking at the opportunities. The reality is that a lot of the technology is available and ready, but people don't necessarily know how to use it in that way. Or sometimes the tools are just not ready yet. Reliable research tools, yes. There's a lot of research tools out there, but they kind of give you dribble at best. Patterns and risk. Data analysis has come up multiple times now, I can see that. Sorry, I forgot. I'm not sharing the screen. No one's telling me. So research tool, patterns, use time on reviewing reports, so you're doing synthesis. There's an interesting one that has come out of, actually, just study came out yesterday, actually, on, they're looking at the effect of language now that everyone is using ChatGPT to rewrite things, that we're starting to normalize language in the sense that everyone is kind of using the same tone and using the same words, even that they were like, we're starting to use increasing the frequency of these words that we use because we didn't write them. And so it's an interesting social kind of language social study that's showing that it's going to get kind of boring because no one's writing anymore. And everyone seems to be just, using ChatGPT. Instead of just using it to, fix grammar or things like that, they're actually using it to write most of what they write. So huge impact, cultural impact on language as well. So I would caution you on having GPT write everything for you so you can keep your identity of language and tone. So, but that's come up. Strategy docs, donor proposals, research. Finding new ideas and technology, that's an interesting one. There's a big debate right now around the capabilities of AI to truly think. And when we think of original thinking the way humans do, and being able to go back to basics and transfer ideas across different sectors, it's not there yet. And it has the illusion of it. And there's another study that came out this week on how reasoning is not actually, there's a couple of studies that reasoning is not truly happening, and that it can't go down to true creative ideas, that it's going to bring ideas from other sectors in and maybe it may help you discover that, but it actually doesn't do that original true reasoning that humans do. We're not there yet, despite the illusion of it doing that. And the development of training, yeah, there's a few organizations who've started using that. It is very good at taking, as an instructional designer, so in terms of creating lesson plans, creating training materials based on your content. I would avoid it coming up with a content, and we can speak to that, but it's very good at taking existing content and converting it to effective lesson plans. A lot of the language models can do that. Ooh, this one's exciting. Create living models would demonstrate good and bad examples, yeah. So this is an interesting one. What part of the more research coming out around generative AI is that it will often please you and it will seek to please you very quickly, rather than actually be critical. Unless you ask it to be critical, the default is that it's going to say, oh, yes, you're right. So like, it's just going to be very, very, very eager. And that's a problem. That's a problem because we already trust AI too much. And so my recommendation in this one is always make sure whenever you're asking it ask a more critical question afterwards. Make sure you say, even start your question with, be critical, ... and then keep going. That really helps it bring down that over eagerness that comes through just the default behavior of a lot of language models. Excellent. I'm going to switch back to the presentation view. So back to generative AI, because this is the transformative place that we're experiencing in the WASH sector and the others. And so these are, and some of these came out through your examples as well. Summarization, the most basic form. We don't even need very large language models to do that. We do it, but that's, because that's the tool we have. Categorization is valuable. We did some work where we can use AI to categorize, for example, using the analytical tools, categorizing different reports, categorizing, for example, if you work with survey data, you can do that as well. One of the important parts that I want to speak to now is the tools that we use. So most people use ChatGPT because they were the first in the market. I don't use ChatGPT ever. Well, not ever, I test it because that's my job, but I don't actually use it across. I use lots of other different models. And so I wanted to briefly illustrate that there is more than just ChatGPT out there. I personally have an ethical problem with OpenAI as a company. Not that the others are better. Just yesterday, Anthropic Claude had a ruling against them for breach of copyright around the use of books for training their models that they had not purchased. And so everyone's evil. It's just who's a little less evil within the big tech space. So I will briefly show you other tools if you haven't already. And so one of them is Claude, the one I mentioned. So Anthropic, they all kind of work in the same way. They have tools. You can activate a web search. You can activate thinking, which is the reasoning models or the pretend reasoning models, I call it. Some of them you can connect your actual data. Don't do this unless you're paying, because keep in mind that anytime you use one of these tools, that they use your data unless you tell them not to. So if you're not paying, it's not free, you are giving something away. Another less popular model is Qwen. This is a Chinese model, and this is not DeepSeek, this is Qwen by Alibaba. The Chinese have done a lot of advancement. They're really pushing the AI space a lot. The big concern we have around some of the labs there is the issue around their alignment of the knowledge being too much tied to the current party in place, and so they will bias the information. So if you ask them about events in China that affected the population and the people, it will deny sometimes the existence of those events. So huge concern around bias with some of these. Those tend to not affect things like summarization or basic tasks that you have. So it's really just, if you choose a model, understand what their limitations and risks are around it. But again, they also have all the same tools, the search, the thinking, sometimes you can attach documents, etc. One of my favorite is the French model, Le Chat, which is Mistral. And we'll share all these links. Mistral, again, has the same tools. As you can see, they're all copying each other. They're all just rushing to try and be the best tool out there. They also have all the connectors for web search and connectors for things like that. So these are, they are on par, I would say. Mistral maybe is not as good as the model, but it's extremely fast. And also the advantage of Mistral that I like is that these servers are running in Sweden. They're running off of very low carbon data centers. So these are data centers that are run off of renewable energy. And I think that is absolutely critical when we think of AI and how much energy and water it uses. So again, Le Chat, one of my favorites. You can also get, so a lot of people had mentioned Perplexity. So Perplexity is a research tool, and I'll quickly show this tab as well. Again, the same idea. Now, these ones are a bit more advanced, and Perplexity really focuses on pulling data from the web that they have scraped. So not Google, not Bing, whatever. It has a normal mode. It has a research mode, so it'll do a little bit more thinking. And then it will have a full-on creation lab mode where it actually can spend up to 5 or 10 minutes doing something for you. But the same idea, it will have middle models you can choose to have it run. You can decide you want to search the web. Are you only interested in academic papers? Are you interested in social input? And this is primarily Reddit as a social media tool. It doesn't tap into like LinkedIn and things like that. It really just focuses on Reddit, which the WASH sector is not very active in, so not necessarily useful. But these two web and academic search options are really good. And so that's Perplexity. And then one other one that has become more and more popular is called U.com. And they are developing this research, which is probably one of the best deep research agents out there. And what a deep research agent does is, if I ran a search, and I think I did that, I was looking at actually to produce that Excel sheet that I just shared. I did an analysis and I used RA for it. And it actually went through over 400 sources of data. And so extremely rich. Now, a lot of it's dribble, as we call it, or we call it AI slop. I don't know if you've heard that term. AI slop is just a lot of words, but really like what is really useful. But yes, in terms of the sources, it went through over 400 sources, and it spent about 8 minutes doing this research for me. So very advanced tool that's currently out there. So yeah, that is I wanted to just show you that there is more than ChatGPT, and a lot of these are honestly like either more environmentally effective and also, yeah, so let's not, let's keep our options open in this world where everything is getting less options. Just looking at time here, I'm gonna jump back into these general AI tools there. I think this is for Solène.
Yes, thank you. Amazing, great. Okay, so we looked into what we could use generative AI language models to do for us. And now we wanted to shift the conversation to what could actually go wrong with that. You're not without saying that there are some downsides of AI-generated content. Some of you have actually commented it in the chat or submitted some answers to the Menti poll in relation to that, and we thought it was very important that we go through some of them. Considering the time and the fact that we want to keep a quite large slot for the Q&A, we will go through it quite fast, so seatbelts on, please. Firstly, hallucination. So that can occur when models will generate information that sounds plausible to you as a user, but that is factually incorrect. It's actually fabricated by the AI. It's not evidence-based, which in WASH we tend to really rely on. So this is a huge problem because it presents this information with the same confidence as if it was accurate information. So ourselves as users, we can't actually distinguish the difference. This is why we need evidence-based AI for sure that always mention the source and data of the data that it uses. And actually, one of you has commented in the Menti poll, you know, in the projection of how to use AI in your work, you commented, I want to be able to trust the AI. And absolutely, it's an absolutely legitimate claim and a logical concern to have, considering hallucination risks. All right, into incompleteness then. AI outputs, as Olivier said, they sometimes can provide partial answers that seem complete, but that miss critical insight. It misses crucial context and nuances. It oversimplifies explanations of complex topics. So this is something to also have in mind when you use it. The model could have ignored exceptions. It could lack critical limitations. So it's important to keep this in mind when you use it. Incorrectness, this might be because of outdated training data, biased data. We will look into bias a bit later on. Also of misunderstanding the context or giving oversimplified responses. It's possible that the output is actually incorrect. This is a great risk, especially with general AI models, such as ChatGPT. There's a risk of leading to poor decisions. And it's actually something we'll look into later, is that depending on what you use the AI for and its outputs for, there are greater risks, especially if it's for decision taking. Homogenization, this is when AI systems promote similar content. They reduce the diversity in human thoughts, and they tend to use the same data sources. So it's a great risk here, and maybe a way to tackle that is to have very diverse data to feed the model, and to weight them the same way. Almost last but not least risk is the privacy risk. And actually this goes in line with what Olivier said earlier, and what you already know, that when you use a tool for free, it's probably because you're giving away your data. Privacy violations can take place through data collection and processing and exposing your personal information. So some AI models are more sensible than others about this. So feel free to look into the different models' privacy policies to make sure that they always ask for your consent before using your data. And the last one is actually one that we will dig a bit more in the next slide, is about biases. So as you know, AI systems do not create anything. They are algorithms that amplify human-made information and human biases as well, from training data, development teams, and societal patterns as well. It uses the existing data, which is in itself biased. So if we go into the next slide, we wanted to dive into the bias of gender. We think it's crucial to talk about gender and to give special attention to it, especially when we tackle generative AI. We know that women are very active in the tech field. There's actually an absolute parity at the bachelor level. But when you look at representation at the professional level, especially in the development of AI systems, there's a very large underrepresentation of women. And so what does that mean, right, for the AI models? Well, the woman lens is often missing, and just like any other marginalized group, when a lens is missing, the outputs are often not complete and very biased. We wanted to give you a few concrete examples of how this has been illustrated in existing and already public models. So for instance, facial and voice recognition systems that most of us use nowadays have shown higher error rates for women and for people of color. Also, when you have algorithms that screen through resume when people are applying to jobs, we've seen that algorithms have discriminated women more than men. Healthcare AI have missed conditions that present differently women because they're not trained to look at conditions when they're lived by women. And also we've seen, for instance, discrimination towards people that are older when that are younger, sorry, when lending decisions. So these are all different examples of how we can expect many models to show bias in their outputs, and we need to have this into account, to take this into account when we use it, when we use the outputs, to make sure that we are critical towards this. So if we go on to the next slide, knowing this, we're not saying that we should not be using AI models. If so, we wouldn't be here, but instead, maybe we need to, each of us, be able to ask ourselves different questions. We summarize them into 5 questions that we ask ourselves, and we invite you to ask yourself when you're considering using AI. There are 5 simple steps. The first one is to actually ask yourself the question, do I actually need the AI for this? If not, as Olivia said, be confident in your own creative, in your own identity when writing. Make sure that human creation do not go extinct, and maybe rely on peer-to-peer information and data. A second step is to take into consideration the environmental impact that would have your use of this AI compared to another AI model. We know that larger models will use more energy and water. The location where the data centers are also impacts their energy print. So it's important to know the different models that exist and be aware of their water consumption and carbon prints as well. A third step we invite you to take is to try to measure the risks and impacts of using AI for the tasks that you want to use it for. As I said earlier, based on what you want to use the AI for, the risk could be larger or lighter, especially for decision taking. There can be some serious consequences to take into account only the output from the AI. So it's important to take that into account. Maybe a fourth one, something that we don't really learn how to do, although it's absolutely crucial, is to learn how to prompt. It's absolutely necessary if you want to avoid the different pitfalls that we presented earlier. And good prompting means that the outputs you will get will be more precise, the responses will be more qualitative, the sources will be more relevant, and also that the impact will be, the environmental impact will be lesser, because instead of doing 7 small prompts to make sure that the output is more precise, you can do 1 large prompt, and that way the environmental impact is better. So I think we can go on to the last part before the Q&A, which is on the different models that exist. Olivier already gave quite a list of great examples, but also with the demo, I think you'll have fun testing the different types of AIs for WASH. Back to you, Olivier.
Yeah, so I did mention some of these. What I wanted to, I don't know if we have much time to do a lot of the demo itself, because I want to make sure we have time for questions. We only have 10 minutes. So what I will do is just share a link with you, and I'll quickly show the tool, but I won't run through it. And so what we've built, what I built here is I simply built a tool that taps into a whole bunch of different models. So in the bottom right here, you can actually click, I should just keep that on by default. But essentially I've got 5 different models here that are gonna run your same prompt 5 times in different ways. And I've got some sample WASH prompts that are available here for you if you can't come up with anything. So for example, evaluate the effectiveness of nature-based solutions in enhancing water security. I will run it. I won't go through in detail, but I built this tool just to show you that the same question with different models can give you very different answers. And this one is the Google model, and I've got some explanation on each of these models, so you can read those later. What I've also done is I've actually intentionally biased a model. So for example, this is the old Sonnet 3.7, already Sonnet 4 by Anthropic. I introduced a very slight climate denying bias to it. And it is quite subtle, and it's a little bit scary on how it will subtly include that bias. So have a look, play with this, get a feel of how this works. I also showed an example of a reasoning model that'll show you a reasoning process there before it answers the question. And so there you are. I've shared the link in the slide. I can't spend more on this, but do have a good opportunity to understand the differences with the different models. So I'm going to go back to showing this tab. If we can mute our model, if we can mute our mics, that would be great. Thank you. So yeah, have a look there. It's on the Baobab Tech website, and you can go and play with it. It is rate limited, so you can't run it 1,000 times, or I'll use up all my AI credit, and you will be destroying the planet. So only use it a little bit and give a play. But I think we can jump into questions now. I'm going to hesitate to say come on mic because we do have 80 people in the room. If you would like to use the Q&A section, I'll let Solène run that.
Sounds good. We've had quite a lot of questions already, actually. Chaiwei and Olivier, feel free to look through them and maybe pick those that you would like to prioritize, considering we have 8 minutes left. I saw some questions in the chat, and I think we've given a bit of attention to copy and paste them into the Q&A section. So all of them should be represented in the Q&A section. If you have more questions, feel free to shoot them. Thanks.
So I can tackle the one that I don't know if it was pushed in here, but it was a one around data. Going back to the traditional, the original predictive models.
Yeah,
the predictive models do rely on data,
good
absolutely.
idea
And it's the same for the.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a bit of a lag there, Chaiwei. So the predictive models rely on data, but so do the generative models. And so that is the biggest challenge in WASH right now, is not necessarily that we've got the AI tools, but it's how we're getting the data in the tools. That could be the same if you're trying to design, for example,
a bit of challenge with my connection on this side. But go ahead, Olivier. I was just diving into the. Let's see.
Thanks. Gotta love the internet. So on the data side around the predictive models, yes, there's a data missing issue there. And so part of, I think, a lot of the initiatives in leveraging AI is actually working within the data space. So how are we gathering data? How are we opening up data where we can and making it available to leverage the AI tools? Another question that I see here by Thomas Russell is the knowledge, attitudes, and skills humanitarian watch practitioners need to have regarding the use of AI in their work. I think that really goes back to Solen's slide around understanding the limitations of the tool that you're using. And it could be simply like the way you use a chatbot-like tool, or when we're starting to see much more tools that have AI integrated into them. That's the kind of the next movement. Everyone's still using chatbots for personal use, but what we're still going to see is we're going to see a ton more tools developed with AI inside of it. So it could be a mapping tool, it could be a decision support tool. And so it's understanding what is actually happening with the AI tool there. So my number one rule is be hypercritical, be very, very cautious if it sounds good, and turn on your analytical brain, turn on your critical brain. That's the number one attitude. From a knowledge side, it's understand how is it working, what is actually working, and ask other tools to understand how could this be working. You've got AI to help you understand how AI works. Feel free, anyone else, to just jump in and tell me if you want to focus on a question. Oh yeah, there we go, like self-help, that's the question on data.
Yeah, Olivier, there's a question.
Nuances with dealing with large amounts of data. So Christy here.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, I can. Slight lag.
Yeah, there's a specific one on AI in research and how to avoid being detected with just what AI tools are
Which one is that?
used and whether we are actually using AI. You know, how do you personalize?
Yeah, when you're using AI for research, how can you avoid it being detected?
And ensure that they are reflecting what?
Yeah, I think
what you are looking at, and specifically your personalized output.
Yeah, I think like personalizing the use of it is important. So if you're using AI for research, I don't think you should avoid it being detected. I think you should declare it. I think you should say, I've used AI to help me do this research. I think that's very important. The difference is what is the human role and how are you being critical with the outputs of it? So I would say don't try and avoid it. I would say declare it, be transparent, explain how you've used AI to do your research. I have absolutely no problem with people using AI for doing the research. My question is, how are you using AI for doing the research? How much of a critical eye are you bringing to it? And that's absolutely critical. One of the questions here was around how to manage AI handling large amounts of data and the nuance with large amounts of data from various sources. It's a very fundamental question. I think that's a very deep question from Christy here. There are breaking it down. So what we're seeing is we're in this space where we're balancing the range from completely autonomous agents. So AI that's literally doing the full workflow for you. That has a much higher risk of where the human interaction is. And then on the other spectrum, like humans doing a lot of the work. And so what I think what a lot of the debate is around having the what we call human in the loop approach or human on the loop approach, where in this sort of, you've got to, let's say you're using AI to process a lot of data. When should that system intentionally design to bring in a human? And if you're designing this workflow, how are you designing it to make sure humans are jumping in at the right time? One of the tools that we're building in a project is we're intentionally making the AI process as transparent as possible. So if the AI is going to work through a lot of data, it's going to show you the trace, what we call tracing and observability. And so the tool is telling you what it's doing, so the human can do a kind of a quality sanity check on what's happening at various points of this workflow. So right now we're seeing a lot of black box AI with a lot of autonomous approach. I think we're going to actually go back to systems that are becoming more transparent with more with tracing and observability. So that's my super short answer to a complex question there, Christy. Hopefully that's useful. On the What else have we got? There's a lot to keep up with the developments in AI respect to our question. The 5 questions for responsible use. So we've got a question here on how, what's the most efficient way to keep up with developments in AI with respect to answering the 5 questions? So there's 5 concerns about responsible use. It takes a lot to keep up. I spend a lot of time every day doing it, so I don't expect everyone to be doing that. There's a bit of a concern because of the quality of transparency, which is very low. We're not seeing much transparency around the guardrails that are happening within the AI tools. We're actually seeing a deregulation of AI right now, especially in the US, which everyone is copying. So there is some concerns around the fact that they're actually removing guardrails. So it does boil down to the user. Honestly, I say like use your gut. I know that sounds weird, but I think it is important to still just turn on that analytical brain and as you use a tool, look at the things like, is it doing a web search? Okay, is that the knowledge that it's bringing in? Even if it's using the web, is it like actually referring to a resource that actually exists? So spend a bit of time, you're saving hundreds of hours using AI. So maybe use 20 of them to kind of dig in a little deeper to what's happening so that you don't have to keep, having to understand the intricate details of how these models work to trust it. So we're out of time already. I want to answer some of these questions. What we'll do is we'll grab any unanswered questions and follow up with an email and try and get some of these answers for you in that email so that everyone can get a short response. But I'll hand it back to Celine.
Yes, amazing. Yes, great. Also, I think that a last question on the Menti poll to understand what exactly you would like us to tackle in the advanced session that we hope to organize maybe in a couple of months after the summer, once everyone is back, or winter for those that join us from the South Hemisphere. So feel free to go back on the Menti link that we sent out earlier. It's the same QR code, the same link, and to send us some either questions or subjects that you're very interested about, and we will make sure to focus the next session about that. And I think we are good in terms of slides. Thank you everyone for joining. I mean, the fact that over 180 now people have registered into the session shows that there's great curiosity and maybe concern as well into how AI will be implemented and generative AI in WASH. So thank you for being so curious and opening up the door today and coming to our session. We can stay in touch via LinkedIn. I also share my email address in the chat for the structures that might be interested in partnering up with Baobab Tech. So yes, we'll be in touch. We'll make sure to post the information for the second session. And with that, thank you everyone. Have a great evening or afternoon or morning for those that are waking up with us. And yes, we'll see each other very soon for the second session.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.